I trust an only child. I was born at P. My parents came from Q. It was from them I received, together with the trypanema pallidum, the huge nose whose remains you have before you. They were severe with me, but just. For the least peccadillo, my father beat me till I bled with his solid razor strop. But he never failed to notify my mother that she might dress my wounds with tincture of iodine or permanganate of potash. Here lies, no doubt, the explanation of my unconfiding character and general surliness. Unfitted for the pursuit of knowledge, I was taken away from school at the age of 13 and placed with farmers nearby. Heaven, as they put it, having denied them offspring of their own, they fell back on me with very natural virulence. And when my parents perished in a providential railway smash, they adopted me with all the forms and observances required by the law. But no less feeble of body than of mind, I was for them a constant source of disappointment. To follow the plow, ply the scythe, flounder in the mangelwurzels, and so on, were labors so far beyond my strength that I literally collapsed whenever forced to undertake them. Even as shepherd, coward, goatherd, piggard, it was in vain I strained every nerve. I could never give satisfaction. For the animals strayed, unnoticed by me, into the neighboring properties, and there ate their belly full of vegetables, fruit and flowers. I pass over in silence the combats between rutting males, when I fled in terror to take shelter in the nearest outhouse. Add to this that the flock or herd, because of my inability to count beyond 10, seldom came home at full muster, and with this too I was deservedly reproached. The only branches in which I may boast of having, if not excelled, at least succeeded, were the slaughter of little lambs, calves, kids and porklings, and the emasculation of little bullocks, rams, billy goats, and piglets, on condition, of course, they were still unspoiled, all innocence and trustingness. It was therefore to these specialties I confined myself from the age of 15. I have still at home some charming little, well, comparatively low, ram's testes dating from that happy time. In the fowl yard, too, I was a terror of accuracy and elegance. I had a way of smothering geese that was the admiration and envy of all. Oh, I know you are listening with only half an ear, and that half unwilling, but that is nothing to me. For my life is behind me, and my only pleasure left to summon up, out loud, the good old days happily gone forever. At the age of 20, or possibly 19, having been awkward enough to fecundate a milkmaid, I ran away, under cover of night, for I was closely watched. I improved this occasion by setting light to the barns, granaries, and stables. But the flames were scarcely under way when they were doused by a downfall none could have foreseen, so starry was the sky at the moment of ignition. That was 50 years ago. Feels like 500. He brandished his stick and brought it down with a thump on the seat, which emitted instantaneously a cloud of fine, ephemeral dust. 500, he bellowed. The train slowed down. Mercier and Camier exchanged a look. The train stopped. Woe is us, said Mercier. We're in the slow and easy. The train moved on. We might have alit, said Mercier. Now it's too late. Next stop, said the old man. You alight with me. This puts a fresh complexion on it, said Mercier. Butcher's boy, said the old man. Poulterer's boy, knacker's boy, undertaker's man, sexton. One corpse on top of another, there's my life for you. Gab was my salvation, every day a little more, a little better. The truth is I had that too in my bleeding blood, my father having sprung, with what alacrity you may imagine, from the loins of a parish priest. It was common knowledge. I infested the outlying horse shops and saloons. Comrades, I said, having never learnt to write. Comrades, Homer tells us, Iliad, Book 3, lines 85 and following, in what consists happiness here below? That is to say, happiness. Oh, I gave it to them. Parapampo scrotnivo. Like that. Hot and strong. Picked up at night school. He burst into a wild, raucous laugh. Free night school for glimmer-thirsty wrecks. Parapampo scrotnivo. The soft cock and buckets of the hard. Step out of here, I said, with a stout heart and your bollocks in your boots, and come again tomorrow. Tell the missus to go chase apes in hell. There were delicate moments. Then up I'd get, covered with blood, and my rags and ribbons. And at 'em again. Brats, the off-scourings of fornication, and God Almighty, a cheap cent in a Jake's. I cleaned myself up and crashed their weddings, funerals, balls, wakes, and christenings. They made me welcome. Another 10 years and I'd be popular. I let them have it on the lot. Hymen, Vaseline, the evil day from dawn to dark. Till I came in for the farm, or better still the farms, for there were two. The creatures, bless their hearts, they loved me to the end. A good job for me they did. For my snout was starting to crumble. People love you less when your snout starts to crumble. The train slowed down. Mercier and Camier drew in their legs to let him pass. The train stopped. Not alighting? Said the old man. You're right. Only the damned alight here. He wore gaiters, a yellow block hat, and a rusty frock coat reaching down to his knees. He lowered himself stiffly to the platform, turned, slammed the door, and raised towards them his hideous face. The train moved on. Adieu, adieu, cried Mr. Madden. They loved me to the end. They loved Mercier, whose back was to the engine, saw him as he stood there, dead to the passengers hastening towards the exit, bowed down his head till it lay on his hands at rest on the knob of his stick. With what relief the eyes from this clutter to the empty sky, with what relief back again. A fresh complexion, said Mercier, a totally fresh complexion. Camier wiped the pain with the cuff of his sleeve caught between the palm and 4 crooked fingers. It's the end, said Mercier. That just about... He paused for thought. That just about finishes me, he said. Visibility, nil, said Camier. You remain strangely calm, said Mercier. Am I right in thinking you took advantage of my condition to substitute this hearse for the express we agreed on? Camier mumbled something about burnt bridges and indecent haste. I knew it, said Mercier. I've been shamefully abused. I'd throw myself out of the window if I wasn't afraid I might sprain my ankle. I'll explain everything, said Camier. You'll explain nothing, said Mercier. You took advantage of my weakness to cod me I was getting on an express when in fact... His face fell apart. More readily than Mercier's few faces fell apart. Words fail me, he said, to disguise what I feel. But your weakness it was precisely, said Camier, that prompted this little subterfuge. Explain yourself, said Mercier. Seeing the state you were in, said Camier, it was imperative to go, and yet at the same time stay. You are cheap, said Mercier. We'll get down at the next stop, said Camier, and consider how to proceed. If we see fit to go on, we'll go on. We'll have lost 2 hours. What are 2 hours? I wouldn't like to say, said Mercier. If, on the other hand, said Camier, we see fitter to return to town. To town, cried Mercier. To town, said Camier. To town we shall return. But we have just come from town, said Mercier, and now you speak of returning there? When we left town, said Camier. It was necessary to leave town, so we very properly left it, but we are not children, and necessity has her whims. If, having elected to drive us forth, she now elects to drive us back, shall we balk? I trust not. The only necessity I know, said Mercier, is to get away from that hell as fast and as far as possible. That remains to be seen, said Camier. Never trust the wind that swells your sails. It is always obsolete. Mercier controlled himself. A third and last possibility, said Camier, since none are to be neglected, is that we form the heroic resolution to stay where we are, in which case I have all we need. A village, just one long street, everything lined up in a row, dwellings, shops, bars, the 2 stations, railway and petrol, the 2 churches, graveyard, and so on. A strait. Take the raincoat, said Camier. Pah, I won't melt, said Mercier. They entered an inn. Wrong address, said the man. This is Messrs. Clapp and Sons, wholesale fruit and vegetable suppliers. And what leads you to suppose, said Camier, that we have no business with Father Clapp or one of his waste products? They regained the street. Is this an inn, said Camier, or is it the fish market? This time the man made way, all of a flutter. Come in, gentlemen, he said. Step right in. It's not the Savoy, but it's, how shall I say? He took their measure with a quick, furtive look. How shall I say, he said. Say it, said Camier, and put us out of our pain. It's snug, said the man. There's no other word. Patrick, he cried. But there was another word, for he added, in a tone of tentative complicity, whatever that sounds like, it's gemütlich. He takes us for globetrotters, said Mercier. Ah, said the man, rubbing his hands. Physiognomies, pronouncing as was his right the G. Have no secrets for me. It's not every day that I have the honor, he hesitated, that I have the honor, he said. Patrick! Speaking for myself, said Mercier, I am happy to meet you at last. You have been haunting me this long time. Ah, said the man. Yes, sir, said Mercier. You appear to me most often on a threshold or at a window. Behind you, torrents of light and joy which should normally annihilate your features, but do not. You smile. Presumably you do not see me. Across the alley from where you stand and plunged in deepest shadow, I too smile and pass on. Do you see me in my dreams, Mr. Gall? Let me relieve you, said the man. In any case, it is a happiness to meet you again, said Mercier, in such happier circumstances. Relieve us of what? Said Camier. Why, said the man, of your coats, your hats. How shall I say? Patrick! But will you look at us? Said Camier. Do we appear to be hatted? Are we wearing gloves without our knowledge? Come, sir. A porter for our trunks, said Mercier. What are you waiting for? Patrick! Cried the man. Vengeance! Cried Mercier, taking a step forward. It was fair day. The saloon was crowded with farmers, cattle dealers, and the like. The beasts proper were far on their way already, straggling along the miry backland roads to the cries of the herds. Some would come at night to their familiar buyers, others to others they knew not of, bringing up the rear behind the sodden ooze. A train of clattering carts, the herds held their pricks through the stuff of their pockets. Mercier propped his elbows on the bar. Camier, on the contrary, leaned his back against it. They guzzle with their hats on, he said. Where is he now? Said Mercier. By the door, said Camier, observing us without appearing to do so. Can one see his teeth? Said Mercier. His mouth is hidden behind his hand, said Camier. I do not ask if his mouth is hidden, said Camier. I ask if one can see his teeth. One cannot see his teeth from here, said Camier, owing to the hand that hides them. What are we doing here, said Mercier. First to eat, said Camier. Barman, what are your titbits today? The barman rattled off a list. Mine will be a buttonfish salad, said Camier, with Dutch dressing. Not on today, said the barman. Then make it a hopper sandwich, said Camier. Just finish the last, said the barman. He had heard it was better to humor them. You keep a civil tongue in your head, said Mercier. He turned to Camier. What kind of a kip is this? He said. What kind of a trip is this? At this point, the journey of Mercier and Camier seemed likely indeed to founder. That it did not was doubtless due to Camier, mirror of magnanimity and ingenuity. Mercier, he said, leave it to me. Do something, for God's sake, said Mercier. Do something? Why must I always be the one to lead the way? Call your employer, said Camier. The barman seemed reluctant. Call him, my good fellow, said Mercier. Call him when you're told. Make the little sound he can tell from every other and would not fail to hear even in a howling gale, or the little beck that is lost on all but him and would bring him running through the heavens, though the heavens were to fall. But he whom Mercier had called Mr. Gall was already by their side. Have I the honor of addressing the proprietor, said Camier. I am the manager, said the manager, since he was the manager. It appears there is no more hopper, said Mercier. You have a curious way of managing for a manager. What have you done with your teeth? Is this what you call gemütlich? The manager wore the air of one in thought. He had no taste for trouble. The extremities of his drooping gray mustache seemed bent on meeting. The barman watched him closely. Mercier was struck by the scant gray strands, fine as a babe's, trained forward with pitiable coquetry from the back of the head across the crown. Mr. Gall had never appeared to him thus, but always erect and smiling and radiant. Ah, well, said Mercier, no more about it. Such shortage is understandable after all. Would you have a room by any chance, said Camier, where my friend might take a moment's rest? He is dropping with fatigue. He leaned towards the manager and whispered in his ear. His mother, said the manager. My mother, is it? Said Mercier. She died perpetrating me, the slut, rather than meet my eye. What's all this? He said to Camier. Have you no respect for my family? I could manage a room, said the manager, but of course, a moment's rest, said Camier. He is out on his feet. Come on, nightmare pal, said Mercier. You can't refuse me that. Of course, at the full day rate, said the manager. On an upper floor, as far as possible, said Mercier, where I can throw myself out of the window without misgiving, should occasion arise. You'll stick by him, said the manager. To the last, said Camier. Patrick, cried the manager. Where's Patrick? He said to the barman. Out sick, said the barman. What do you mean out sick, said the manager. I saw him last night. I even thought I saw him just now. Out sick, said the barman. No hope, they say, sinking fast. How aggravating, said the manager. What's the matter with him? I do not know, said the barman. And why was I not informed, said the manager. We must have thought you knew, said the barman. And who says it's serious, said the manager. It's a rumor going the rounds, said the barman. And where is he, said the manager. At home or? A pox on your Patrick, cried Mercier. Do you want to finish me? Show the gentlemen up, said the manager. Take their order and hurry back. 6, said the barman. Or 7, said the manager, as the gentlemen prefer. He watched them go. He poured himself a glass and tossed it off. Ah, Mr. Graves, he said, good day. What are you taking? Nice pair, said Mr. Graves. Oh, that's nothing, said the manager. I'm used to it. And where, might I ask, did you get used to it? Said Mr. Graves in his incipient pastoral patriarch's thick bass. Not among us, I vow. Where I got used to it? Said the manager. He closed his eyes the better to see what was still, in spite of all, a little dear to him. Among my masters, he said. I'm happy to hear you say so, said Mr. Graves. I wish you good day. The manager capped this. His weary gaze strayed over the saloon where the honorable yokels were making to depart. Mr. Graves had given the signal. They would not be slow to follow an example of such moment. The barman reported back. Mr. Gast did not at once reply, intent on the scene as it faded and gave way before his open eyes to a little gray medieval square where silent shapes muffled up to the eyes passed slowly with labored tread in the deep snow. They took both, said the barman. Mr. Gast turned towards him. They ordered a bottle of malt, said the barman. Have they settled? Said Mr. Gast. Yes, said the barman. Nothing else matters, said Mr. Gast.